It was a cloudy morning in the city. One of those days where the sky hangs heavy, as if it knows something no one else does. Inside a glass-walled office, towering above the streets, Arav Kapoor, the youngest and most powerful CEO in town, is sat at the head of a long table, sharp jawline, perfectly tailored suit, and a gaze colder than the coffee in his untouched cup. Arav wasn't just known for his business empire, but also for being fiercely proud of his status, wealth, and upbringing. He believed in control, in perfection, and above all, in keeping his distance from anything that didn't fit his vision of a modern life. So when his mother, a kind-hearted woman from a small village, dared to suggest that he consider marrying a girl from her hometown, a simple, rural girl, Arav didn't even try to hide his distaste. "Ma, please," he said with a smirk. "I need a partner who understands my world, not someone who thinks Wi-Fi is a type of plant." His words were harsh, almost cruel, but in his eyes, he was being practical. But what Arav didn't know was that the girl his mother had mentioned, Mira, wasn't ordinary at all. In fact, she wasn't even entirely of this world. Known in her village as the Silent Healer, Mira had powers no one could explain. She didn't speak much, but her presence had an energy to it. Warm, calm, almost otherworldly. People whispered that she could cure ailments with a single touch. No one knew where she came from, or how she did it. Only that when Mira appeared, pain disappeared. Arav, of course, would have dismissed this all as village superstition. He had no time for such things. But life has a strange way of humbling even the proudest hearts. Only weeks after laughing off his mother's suggestion, Arav's world began to spiral. Out of nowhere, he developed a mysterious illness. No doctor could name it, no specialist could explain it. One day he would be fine, and the next, he'd collapse in board meetings, gasping for air, his body trembling like a leaf in a storm. Test after test came back clear. His condition wasn't just unexplained. It was unexplainable. Desperate and tired, Arav hid his weakness from the media, his investors, and his staff. He became paranoid, angry, and quiet. Nights were the worst. He'd wake up drenched in sweat, his heart pounding like it was trying to escape his chest. And always, in those moments, he felt like someone, or something, was watching him. Finally, in the silence of a sleepless night, he remembered his mother's words. That girl Mira, she's not just special. She's the kind of miracle that doesn't knock twice. Driven more by desperation than belief, Arav agreed to visit the village. Under one condition, no one should know who he was. He didn't want charity. He didn't want pity. He just wanted to be cured, so he could get back to his life. The one where everything made sense, and emotions didn't get in the way of logic. The journey to the village was long and uneasy. As the car wound through narrow roads and thick forests, a strange sense of quiet settled over him. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes you feel like you're being watched. Trees swayed without wind. Birds went silent as he passed, and the clouds above grew darker with every mile. It felt like the village wasn't just far away in distance, but in time. Like he was leaving behind the world he knew. When he finally arrived, the air smelled different, earthy, fresh, yet strangely heavy. People watched him with quiet curiosity, recognizing something unfamiliar in his sharp suit and polished shoes. But Mira, she didn't even look up. She was standing near a well, surrounded by people, waiting patiently, dressed in a plain white salwar with long black hair falling over her shoulders. Mira didn't speak. She simply placed her hand over a child's head, and the crying stopped. Her eyes were deep, too deep, like they carried lifetimes of secrets. Arav couldn't believe this was the girl his mother wanted him to marry. She didn't speak his language, didn't match his world. Yet, something about her made him pause, a strange pull, like the kind you feel when you're at the edge of a cliff, afraid to fall, but unable to walk away. When it was his turn, Mira looked at him for the first time. Her eyes locked with his, and everything around him went quiet. The crowd faded, the birds disappeared, even the wind stopped. For a moment, time froze. Without a word, Mira raised her hand and gently placed it over his chest. 1 second, that's all it took. His heart, which had been pounding and aching for weeks, suddenly calmed. His breath returned. The weight lifted. It was like whatever curse had been choking him had vanished into the air. He stared at her, stunned. "What did you just do?" he whispered, unable to believe the relief flooding his body. Mira didn't answer. She only smiled, the kind of smile that holds stories no words can explain. But Arav didn't have time to understand, because just as quickly as the peace came, a shadow moved behind her. Something dark, cold, and fast. It passed through the trees and vanished, leaving behind a chill in the air. The villagers bowed, their heads in silence, and Arav, for the first time in his life, felt real fear. Who was this girl? What had she just done to him? And what was that shadow that followed her? The answers were hiding in the past Mira never speaks of. A past filled with loss, mystery, and an ancient power that only awakens for those who truly believe. Arav came seeking a cure, but what he found was far beyond what he could ever explain. And whether he was ready or not, his life and heart were about to be changed forever. Arav couldn't stop thinking about that moment. The touch of Mira's hand, the sudden stillness, and the unexplainable calm that washed over him. For someone who had built his entire life on logic and facts, what happened that day didn't just challenge his beliefs, it shattered them. Back in the city, Arav's mind kept drifting back to her. He told no one about the healing. Not his doctors. Not his board members. Not even his mother. How could he? How do you explain that a village girl cured something the top hospitals in the world couldn't even diagnose, and did it in 1 second, without a word? But what haunted him more wasn't the healing. It was that shadow, that flicker of something dark behind Mira, something that didn't belong. He remembered how the villagers had gone quiet, how even the wind seemed to back away from it. And most of all, he remembered Mira's smile. So calm, yet carrying something unspoken, almost like a warning. Unable to shake it off, Arav returned to the village, this time not out of desperation, but curiosity, and maybe something deeper, a pull he didn't want to name. His arrival was quieter this time. Without the polished shoes and flashy car, he came alone, in simple clothes, hoping to blend in, but of course, he didn't. Mira was in the fields. When he found her, she looked at him, surprised, but not confused, like she'd known he would come back. They walked together without talking much. She still didn't speak, at least not with words, but her silence didn't feel empty. It was like everything she needed to say was already understood between them. Arav started asking around, quietly, about her past, her story, anything, but the villagers only offered pieces, fragments of things they believed, but never fully understood. They said Mira had appeared in the village years ago after a terrible storm. No family, no belongings, just a young girl found near the temple ruins, unconscious but unharmed. The priest had taken her in, and from then on, strange things began happening. Sick people got better. Lost animals returned. Even crops flourished after years of drought. Some called her a blessing. Others, something else. They say she doesn't age, whispered an old man one evening. I've seen many springs come and go, but that girl, she looks the same. Another woman told him. No one knows where she goes at night, but some say they hear chanting. Others say they see her walking by the river, talking to shadows. Arav didn't want to believe any of it, but the more he listened, the more he saw it. Mira wasn't just a healer. She was a mystery. And at the center of that mystery was something powerful and possibly dangerous. One night, Arav followed her. He didn't mean to. But when he saw her walking toward the forest, path after dusk, barefoot and silent, something in him moved. He walked behind, careful not to be seen. Through the dense trees and under the moonlight, Mira stopped at the edge of an old temple. Abandoned, broken, nearly swallowed by the forest. She knelt near a faded stone idol and began humming softly. Then, the air shifted. Arav felt it first. The chill that crawled down his spine. Then he saw it. Shadows, curling around the trees, slowly pulling toward her, like they were drawn to her light. Mira didn't move. Her eyes were closed, her lips moving in a silent prayer, and the shadows circled her like wolves, unsure of their next move. Suddenly she opened her eyes, glowing faintly, silver in the moonlight, and the shadows screamed, not with sound, but with force. The trees shook, birds scattered, the air trembled, and then silence. The shadows vanished. Just like that, Mira stood, slowly turning. Arav had frozen in place, breath caught, unable to hide. I know you're there, she said softly. Her voice, the first time he'd ever heard it, was gentle, not angry, not surprised, just tired. He stepped out. What was that? She looked at him, her eyes heavy with a pain he couldn't understand. The thing that tried to take you. It's still around. It follows those who carry pride. In their hearts, it feeds on fear. You were lucky. Not everyone survives it. Arav struggled to process her words. So you're fighting it all this time? I've been fighting it for longer than you've been alive, she replied. And not for myself. For people who never even see it coming. Why you? He asked. Why do you have to? Mira looked up at the sky. Because I was once like it. The confession hit him like a storm. What do you mean? But Mira didn't answer. She turned and walked away, leaving him with more questions than answers. Back in the village, tension began to rise. Strange things started happening. Children falling ill without cause. Animals disappearing. The river water turning murky overnight. People began to whisper again. This time, not just about Mira, but about Arav. Some said he brought the darkness with him, that his presence had stirred something long buried. Mira stayed quiet, but Arav could see it in her eyes. The worry, the weight, and the fear of something waking up again. Meanwhile, in the city, Arav's company was falling apart. News of his illness had leaked. Investors were pulling out. His carefully built empire was crumbling. But for the first time, he didn't care about money or power. He cared about her, about saving her from whatever this curse was. And that's when he made the choice. He decided to stay, not just as someone healed, but as someone ready to protect the healer. But the darkness had been watching, waiting, and now it knew. It wasn't after Mira anymore. It was after the one she had healed. The one whose soul had been touched, whose heart had changed. And this time, it wasn't going to wait in the shadows. The storm was coming, and love, no matter how strong, might not be enough. The storm came without warning. One night the sky turned a deep shade of red. The wind howled through the village, like a cry of something ancient waking up. Doors slammed shut on their own. Fires flickered, then died. The animals wouldn't stop screaming. It felt like the ground itself was trembling. And in the middle of it all, Mira stood still, as if she had known this moment would come. Arav rushed to her. He didn't care about fear anymore. He didn't care about logic or reputation or what people would say. All he knew was that something terrible was here, and the only person who had ever stood between it and the world was Mira. She looked at him, her eyes calm despite the chaos. "It's come for you now," she said softly, "because I saved you. And when I did, I broke an old bond. It wants to take you back. But why me?" Arav asked, barely able to hear himself over the roar of the wind. "Because you're different now," she said. "You were once full of pride, blind to pain, untouched by love. But that night, you opened your heart, you asked for help, and I gave it. That changed you. That weakened it." Arav shook his head. "Then we fight it together." Mira's eyes shimmered. "I'm not afraid of fighting it. I'm afraid of what I'll have to give up to win." Before he could speak again, the sky split open. Not with lightning, but with darkness. A black mist poured into the village like a flood, swallowing trees and homes. Villagers screamed and ran, but there was nowhere to hide. The shadows moved with purpose. Not wild, but hungry, focused, and their eyes were locked on Arav. Suddenly Mira stepped in front of him, her hands raised, her voice rising in a language he didn't understand. Light burst from her palms, and for a moment the shadows recoiled. But not for long. They began to circle, tighter, faster, whispering words that chilled Arav to his bones. "I can stop it," Mira said, "but only by finishing what I began years ago." He turned to her. "What does that mean?" "I wasn't always human," she said quietly. "I was like them, a creature bound by darkness. Until one day, I chose to break free. I asked to feel pain, to live among humans, to understand what it means to love, to heal, to hurt. That was my punishment, and my gift." Arav stared at her, heart pounding. "You're saying you were—" "I was the darkness," she said, "but I walked away. They never forgave me." As the shadows came closer, Mira turned to him with tears in her eyes. "I can end this, but if I do, I can't stay. This form, this life, it'll be gone. They'll take me back." "No." Arav stepped forward. "There has to be another way." She smiled, gently touching his face. "You were never meant to believe in me, but you did. That's more than I ever hoped for." And with that, Mira stepped into the center of the storm. She raised both arms, her voice now loud and clear, echoing through the sky. The ground lit up with symbols, glowing white. The shadows screamed, trying to pull back. But Mira's light was too strong. Her body rose off the ground, surrounded by a halo of fire and wind and memory. Arav watched, helpless, as the woman who had healed his heart gave herself up to save his life. There was a final flash, and silence. The sky cleared. The wind stopped. The village stood still. The shadows were gone, but so was Mira. Arav fell to his knees. He didn't cry. Not at first. Just sat there, staring at the place where she had stood, where she had smiled, where she had given everything, not because she had to, but because she chose to. In the days that followed, the village returned to peace. The river flowed clean. The children played again. No one saw Mira, but they all remembered her. They lit candles every night, whispering prayers not of sorrow, but gratitude. Arav stayed longer than anyone expected. He helped rebuild, planted trees, even taught the village kids. His company had collapsed. His old world had moved on. But he didn't miss any of it. What he had found here was something money could never buy. One morning, as he walked by the old temple, he saw a small flower blooming where Mira had last stood. Just one, bright white, glowing faintly in the sunlight. He smiled. Some stories don't end the way we expect. Some healings come with pain. And some love stories are so deep, they outlive time. Arav never married, but he was never alone again. Because the woman the world called a rural girl was the ghostly healer he had searched for all along. And though she was gone, her touch, her love, remained forever.